Bienvenidos a parte número 3 a nuestra cuarta lección de español. Aquí estamos discutiendo la forma subjuntivo. And again, you're on part 3. So we're going to further our examination into the subjunctive, and more specifically, this part of the subjunctive lesson, we are going to learn how to actually conjugate specific verbs, like AR verbs and ER-IR verbs. Alright, so enjoy part 3. We'll talk to you soon.
And let's start with the present tense subjunctive conjugation of hablar. Hablar is always the default verb to go to, right? Means to speak. It's a regular AR verb, very easy to work with. Here's how we do this in the subjunctive. Hopefully you've gotten the point by now that you have to get these verb charts going, okay? Always come up with some blank verb charts when you start doing drills like this. And it'll help you to visualize where all the grammatical persons go and whether or not they're singular or plural. Now, you're going to notice that the first person singular is hable, and the E is the opposite vowel to hablar. And think about also the difference in how that sounds. You say yo hablo when you're saying I'm speaking, but if somebody were to hear you say yo hable, well, there's an obvious difference in the tone there, and in their brains they know how to file Spanish information, so they will think that you are speaking in the subjunctive mindset, which means what you're saying hasn't happened in reality. So, que yo hable, que tú hables. Que tú hables. Que él, ella, usted hable. Que nosotros hablemos. Que vosotros habléis. Remember, vosotros isn't commonly used in the Western Hemisphere. Or not the Western Hemisphere, but the West. And ellos, ellas, ustedes hablen. And shifting gears, we'll go to the ER-IR set. Escribir, to write. Yo escriba. Yo escriba. Tú escribas. You'll notice I've underlined the opposite vowel in all the suffixes here. Que él, ella, usted escriba. Que nosotros escribamos. Vosotros escribáis. Finally, que ellos, ellas, ustedes escriban.
Okay, so let's practice conjugating several verbs in the subjunctive, shall we? This is the present tense of the subjunctive, that is. So let's start out with the AR verb set. Doesn't matter what AR verb it is, we're going to follow a 3-step plan. First AR verb we do, why don't we do llamar, to call. Okay, so what we should do here is obviously fill out a verb chart. Always, always, always. Okay, yo llame. Okay, tú llames. Él, ella, usted llame. Notice that the first and the third person singular are the same. Okay, and then we got nosotros llamemos. Llaméis. And then llamen. Ellos, ellas, ustedes. Okay, that's llamar. Now, how did I get that? Okay, well, let's break it down. Let's take llamar. What's the first step? first person singular present tense, yo form. Llamo, yo llamo, verdad? We're going to knock out that O. That's the second step. Then we're going to replace it with the opposite vowel. And if you recall, the opposite vowel for AR is going to be what? An E. Now from this finding, we can take and conjugate the entire thing. And actually we have it out here. Llame, llames, llame, llamemos, llaméis, llamen. Opposite vowel all around. Okay? Let's see what it looks like in an ER-IR. Okay, so we have an ER-IR verb. Let's do an IR verb this time. How about batir? Batir. To beat. Like to hit something against something is batir. Okay? So this is again an ER-IR. It's regular. Okay. Now, so for the IR, what's our opposite vowel? Well, ER and IR's opposite vowel is A. Okay. So what we're going to do is take the yo form that would have been bato, drop the O. You're left with bat, and then you're going to take that opposite vowel and make a verb chart. Right?
Here are several things to know about the subjunctive conjugation. It is a laundry list. First, the first and third person singular are the same. How does one avoid confusing the subject of your communication? Well, you need to use a subject pronoun, for example. Any way to avoid ambiguity. Stem changing verbs carry the same stem change in the subjunctive conjugation. For example, our verb volar, to fly. Remember, in the present tense, we would conjugate that yo vuelo, tú vuelas, él vuela, nosotros volamos. And in the subjunctive, we're going to actually use that same O to UE conjugation, or that O to UE radical change, the stem change, right? So taking the O to UE stem change, our subjunctive conjugation will be yo vuele, tú vueles, él vuele, etc. There is a spelling change that occurs if the opposite vowel added onto one of our two letters in the Spanish alphabet that create different sounds are present. For example, the C or the G. Notice our subjunctive conjugation here of jugar. Notice how the root of jugar ends in a G. So any letter, i.e. the opposite vowel, that you put after the G, if it changes the sound of the G, you have to actually respell the word to make sure that the phonetics are constant. Okay, for the next several slides, I went ahead and conjugated a couple of verbs that have the C or the G as the ending letter in their roots. The first one is jugar, to play. The first person singular, juegue, juegue. Notice how we have to add a U in there. I went ahead and underlined the U. That U is going to be present in every form of the conjugation. Que tú juegues. Que tú juegues. Que él, ella, usted juegue. Que nosotros juguemos. Juguemos. Vosotros juguéis. Que ellos, ellas, ustedes jueguen. If we didn't put the U in there, unfortunately, if you can recall from elementary Spanish, the G makes a H sound. However, if there's a U in there, it makes a G sound, a guttural G sound. Our next verb, sacar, sacar, to take out. Que yo saque. Notice that we now have to put a Q as well as a U there. If we just left that as a C, it would say sase, sase. We don't want to say sase because the C makes a K sound in the original verb, sacar. We need to try to maintain the pronunciation of the infinitive as best as we can. So if it was sacar, the sock, we have to make sure we carry that fricative K sound. So we have to take it to the subjunctive with that sock in mind. Now, if that E was present, it would say sase. We don't want it to say that. So we have to say K. And that's why we put a Q and a U, because a QU makes a K sound. It's que yo saque, que tú saques. Él, ella, usted saque. Que nosotros saquemos. Ellas. Que vosotros saquéis. Que ellos, ellas, ustedes saquen.